Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Minisode number 107 on the More Than Fitness podcast. Hope you guys are doing wonderful today. Just wanted to start this off by saying I appreciate you listening. And the topic for today is going to be what to do when nothing's working. 3 things. So this minisode initially started off as an email that I sent to my email list last week. But I'm going to add, even if you read that email, I'm going to add a little bit more context here. But if you do like what I go over in this, you'll definitely love my emails. So click the link in the description to sign up for those every single week. I send out 1 to 2 emails. And yeah, I think this will help a lot of you, because in that email, I talked about how I was going through a little bit of a losing streak. And I think that the losing streak, the self-pity I was kind of going through, and I made the caveat in the email, and I'll make the caveat here. This is just due to my own standard that I hold myself to, not because things are actually very bad in my life. I understand perspective, et cetera, but to me, I had felt like I just couldn't win. There was opportunity after opportunity where I had just missed the mark, or maybe my work wasn't up to the standard that I wanted it to. Basically, it was just, I was in a rut, for a lack of a better term. I was stuck. And I have a feeling many of you can know what that feels like, either in the past or maybe you're going through it right now. And maybe these 3 things will help you guys out as well. And so the first thing that really helps me whenever nothing is working and I feel like I'm stuck is that I start with a lot of deep breathing, a lot of meditating, and taking some L-theanine, which is a supplement I'll mention in just a second. But what happened up until this point of me feeling stuck, things were good, right? And whenever you meditate regularly, you can sometimes slack off whenever things are going good, right? Like, who needs to meditate whenever life is going well? You kind of use it as a tool when shit is going downhill. But what I've found, especially recently, is that by then it's too late. My mind is kind of detrained, and it takes some time for my mind to pick back up in that meditative state where I'm just more self-aware of my emotions. I'm not letting myself spiral as much whenever things happen. I'm not as much of a reactive state whenever I start my day, right? You can start your day, be filled with anxiety, and then you just start to react that everything comes towards you. And what I think meditation does, and why it's so important to do it regularly and not just when you need it, is so that whenever these events do start to happen, they don't snowball more quickly than they need to. You don't suffer more than you need to, right? Because of course, shit happens sometimes, right? Things are negative, at least perceived as negative in our life. And I'm not saying that meditation is the cure-all for that, but what it can do is it can help handle that situation better and see it for what it is, and allow you to work through it or cope with it. And if you only do that whenever the problem has already started, well, then you're already 2 steps behind. So what I found was I had to play catch up. I had to be very strict with my meditation regimen. I used the app Waking Up by Sam Harris. It's amazing. It even has a 50-day introductory course, which is perfect for anybody who is just starting to get into meditation. There's plenty of other things on the app. I don't get anything for saying this. I've just found a lot of use out of it. And I think it is really helpful if you want to check that out. And then lastly, the L-theanine. L-theanine is an amino acid that pairs really well, pairs synergistically with caffeine. It's a natural supplement that is typically found in things like green tea, and it promotes relaxation without drowsiness. And so I take 200 to 400 milligrams of L-theanine on a regular basis. And I've noticed it does help out a little bit. So that's the first one. Lots of deep breathing, meditating, and taking L-theanine regularly. All right, the second thing is thinking in probabilities and not expectations. I got this idea from Jack Butcher, who is the founder of a company called Visualize Value. And I really liked his concept of thinking in probabilities and not expectations, because part of the reason I felt I was on this losing streak was because of the expectations I was having whenever I would do X, Y, and Z, right? So if I do this, then X will happen, right? I have that expectation of X will happen. And then there's a binary result of either it's going to happen and I'm going to feel good, or it's not going to happen and I'm going to feel bad. And of course, everything that we want to happen doesn't always happen. And so whenever it feels bad, or whenever it doesn't happen over and over and over again, well, then you feel bad, you feel bad, you feel bad. And that's, you can rinse and repeat that over and over again. And so you can see how it's a big gamble. Sure, there's a high reward whenever you win, but there's also a big loss whenever you lose. And so what I would say to do instead, and what the idea I got from Jack on how to get unstuck, basically, is thinking in probabilities, not expectations. And I go into checkboxing mode is kind of how I put it. So instead of attaching myself to some type of expectation or result, all I do is I think about checking the boxes on the work that I need to put in and day out that are going to give me a higher probability of getting success in the first place. And so the reason why that thinking is different is that it's now not the thinking is different, because if I do X, this will happen. I'm not thinking about that. Instead, what I'm saying is, if I do this, there's a higher chance that X will happen. I'm not expecting X to happen, but I'm giving myself the best opportunity possible to increase my odds of having a successful outcome. And that is the big difference there. And so an example of this would be, instead of having the expectation of I'm going to lose 2 pounds this week, what we're doing instead is I'm going to go to the gym 4 times this week, right? So focusing on the process instead of the outcome. So increasing your chances of success instead of focusing on, okay, I have to lose 2 pounds this week or else I'm going to be unhappy. Instead, just focus on the activity or the action that will increase the probability of being successful, which is going to the gym 4 times this week. So yeah, that's number 2. All right, and number 3 is relaxing for the same or better result. I got this idea from Derek Sivers, who is an author. He was an entrepreneur, et cetera, really smart guy. And he was telling a story, I think it was on his blog, and I'll just run through it real quick. And he was talking about how he liked to go this certain amount of mileage on his bike. And he would, the first couple of times he would do it, he would huff and puff, he would grit his teeth, he would have laser focus, and he would kind of really push himself to a point to where it was almost like militant and berating himself, and just grinding so hard to reach the destination as fast as possible. And so whenever he did that, whenever he gritted his teeth, worked as hard as possible, he got there in about 45 minutes, in 43 minutes. And then he tried it again the next time. And he said, for this trip, I'm just going to relax. Basically, he said, I'm going to look around at the birds around me. I'm going to smell the fresh air. I'm going to look around, et cetera, et cetera. He's going to relax. And then what ended up happening is he got to the very end that time and he finished in 45 minutes. So all of that huffing and puffing was basically for 2 minutes extra on his end result. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that oftentimes you can actually relax and get the same result, if not better, because what we also don't realize is that anger and self-pity and feeling anxious, all of this is only diluting our clear thinking. And so if that's constantly going on inside our heads, well, then we're not going to be focusing on critical thinking or problem solving or connecting with others. We're just constantly distancing ourselves actually further and further away from the result that we want to happen. Right? So these negative emotions are actually taking us further away from our goal than we want to be. So whenever you frame it in a more logical sense, you realize, oh, okay, like not only are these negative emotions making me feel bad in the moment, right, but it's also taking me further and further away from my goal. So it's good to try and just recognize that. And I think this goes back to point number one with meditation, deep breathing, et cetera, et cetera. But feeling the emotion and then dropping back and seeing it for what it really is, right? It's just an emotion, and it doesn't logically make sense to bring me closer to where I want to be. So I don't want to be, my emotions to be my puppet master and to throw me around in all these different places. So yeah, I think relaxing for the same or better result is key. And the last example I'll say, and I'll wrap this up, is this is also what happens with a lot of my coaching clients whenever they've had a plateau maybe for several weeks and they want to lose fat so bad. They're trying to force their fat loss day in, day out, week after week. And then what ends up happening is we take a diet break. We kind of pull back on the reins a little bit. I let them relax and not be so focused on fat loss. And then boom, fat loss happens, right? It's this weird thing that happens whenever the more that we try and force something to happen, the more we obsess over something to happen, the more that tends to inch further and further away from us, right? It's just right out of our grasp of reach. And I think that there's something to be said there about you can probably still reach that without berating yourself in the process. So either way, you're trying to reach this end goal, you might as well relax a little bit more while you're trying to get it. All right. And that is the three things. What to do when nothing works. Those are the three things. I hope that helped. Thank you guys, as always, for listening and for watching. See ya.